you is actually the product that I'm currently working on. It's called Questmate. I will give you a little bit more of an idea what it is in a moment. But yeah, basically just to set context. And yeah, we're going to record the session, so it's being recorded. I hope nobody has a problem with that. We have like proper setup with like microphones, so we will also be able to share that. You will be able to share it later. And we will have like a very nice announcement at the end of the session as well, something that we just came up with, already built. And yeah, like this is either going to be like the most amazing talk or the most disastrous. There's no in between. Cool, all right, so if everybody's ready, let's go. Cool, let's go. All right. How did I get here? How I got here, yeah, exactly. So I actually came to Australia from Germany like in 2014. But maybe let's start a little bit earlier. So what was I doing earlier, right? So when I was like quite at a young age, I was already like tinkering, and like when I was 4, like I got my first RC car, disassembled it, made it work like, or actually drive in reverse, which was not possible in the stock configuration. And yeah, like I would say the very first tool that I got really excited about was a screwdriver. Then there were like the first iterations of like gaming consoles, but like, yeah, you could game, but like I couldn't like really do and create something with it. So I was still more busy with like Lego and other stuff while playing a little bit on my Atari 2600 back then, and then ColecoVision. So some of you might actually know these things. Just trying to give some context on like, yeah, the background, right, and like the time that I like grew up and like the timeline, right. Eventually, I got my first computer. Quite interestingly, how did we get this computer? So the computer was a Commodore Amiga 500. Does anybody know like the Amiga here, like Commodore Amiga? Yeah, maybe the C64 instead. Yeah, a few more. Cool, awesome. So my mom actually won this at Wheel of Fortune in Germany. So like basically on TV. So that was, I think, like the lucky thing that actually like pretty much put me on my path. And like while my brothers were busy like playing with the machine, I was like busy taking it apart. So often it didn't work because of that. And just trying to understand how it works, right? So I built my own like workbenches. So that basically was the operating system on Amiga back then. Tried to build some first games, like really failed at them, but like had a good time. Anyway, that's like a little bit like when I was like 12 or something, and I think I stuck with the Amiga until I was like 16 or 17, until I then also like went to the PC land. But I actually got even my online fix before the internet was around. So like I already used my Amiga back then when I was 12 to dial into like BBSs. So basically other computers from other people that you could dial into and like leave messages, download files. So again, I'm not sure who remembers that, but yeah, I think like it was an interesting time. So that was my first computer. My first job was actually, maybe to give a little bit of context there as well. So when I left school, like everybody else, I was just looking around me, and like everybody else was like, oh, I'm going to college, I'm going to do this and whatever. But the internet was already around by then. So I was like, okay, I like to spend more time on this and have more bandwidth. So I'm looking for a job at like a company which has like a fast internet connection. So basically I was not looking to work for money, but like for bandwidth. So, and again, that was at the time where like 99% of the civilization was still doing like dial-up, right? So I opened up the yellow pages and yeah, got my first job at like an internet service provider, like a local one in Hanover, back in Germany. And then yeah, just went on from there. I worked for like 3 or 4 more internet service providers and like stick around in like the whole network engineering and system engineering path for like, I would say, for like 10 years or something. So until I got like really good at it, right? Takes 10 years. And then like really like heard about this thing called startups, right? And in Germany there were a few startups, but there was not like the startup scene like in the US, right? Like or in California or in the Bay Area. So I hang out more and more on like Twitter and Hacker News and just was like, oh, holy shit, yeah, that sounds promising, right? And I can finally maybe do my own thing, and it's not as intimidating as I thought, right? So yeah, basically quit my job next day. The CTO of the company that I left, which is one of the biggest drugstore retailer in Germany called Rossmann, the CTO, when I told him that I left, asked me if he can join. And he joined me. And Tina will know Dirk Rossmann, but Dirk Rossmann was actually quite not so happy that the CTO was actually leaving with me, which was like everybody in the company was just like, what's happening here, right? But yeah, he also was like up to something new. And what we ended up building was called DocTape. And that was, yeah, my first startup, right? So now we're getting a little bit into like startup territory. So let me actually tick this off here. First computer, first job, first startup, even though I'm still talking about it. So the first startup that I did was called DocTape. And what DocTape was, it was basically a cloud storage service. So imagine Google Drive, but Google Drive didn't exist yet. So that was back in 2011, right? So I wanted to have a place where I could just like dump all my personal files, video files, audio files, documents, even 3D files. And I just wanted to actually have them primarily in the cloud, not on my local disk anymore. Dropbox was already around, but Dropbox didn't even have like a web interface where you could go to like access your files. Dropbox was still all about syncing your file from one desktop to the other. And like even if you shared it with somebody else, they needed to install the app to get like a shared folder. So it was not cloud first, right? So what we ended up building was like pretty much Google Drive before it existed. And yeah, we grew the startup to like hundreds of thousands of users, but we never focused on like monetization because I was just like, and still am, just like very exciting about like building cool products and building like enabling technology. But sometimes like, yeah, I neglect a little bit like the business side of things, right? But it was okay for the first startup. My investors were aware of that. And they also knew that what we were building, all the capabilities to build the service, were not just valuable within our own product, but basically valuable for like every product that needed to handle files. So what basically happened while like we didn't find a good way to monetize the huge customer base that we already had, huge, maybe not in comparison to Dropbox, like we wanted to find a way to still make this a success, right? And we always had like these people basically reaching out to us and saying like, hey, we really love what you're doing there. We would love that to use that for our own product. And we pushed back on it and said, no, we just built this platform for ourselves. It's decoupled from the actual app that we're working on, but we just leverage it on our own. Otherwise, too many distractions. But at some point we were like, okay, we need to get to the next step, right? So what we did is we basically, what we built, we offered that as a service, right? And we didn't have to do much because we already had the platform. All we had to do was like building a developer center with some documentations and the ability for people to create their own API keys and basically then leverage the storage, the preview generation, and even the previewer experience in mobile and web, and basically put that into their own product. And how do you say, things escalated quite quickly from there. We had like a lot of companies reaching out and say like, we want to do that, but we need a little bit more, let's say, of like a closer relationship, right? So what they basically meant, like, we want to acquire you. And we talked to like the likes of, so we started to talk to like the likes of Amazon, so the Kindle and the Cloud Dive guys. We talked to Google, we talked to Dropbox and Box, so even our competitors. And it's all sounded like super interesting, but not really like exactly what we was looking for. But then there was this Australian company that I was introduced to just before I was going back from the Bay Area back to Germany again. So like some partners that we work with and some close friends were like saying, hey, we just came back from this company. You might know them from like being in Australia. It's called Atlassian, the company, right? But they're also actually here in San Francisco, and you should talk to them because we just talked to them about like our startup, and everything they actually wanted we didn't have, and you have it. So maybe you should talk to them, right? So same day, met with the M&A team from Atlassian, and wouldn't say the rest is history, but like a few weeks later, the whole team from Germany migrated over to Australia. We were like 7 people, and at Atlassian, the reason why they actually acquired us was they wanted to have like the best possible attachment and link experience inside their products. And they didn't just want it to have it in one product, they wanted to have it in all their products, right? So instead of like joining one company and maybe even an existing competitor that has one product and might just do some cherry picking of the stuff that we were capable of, and yeah, basically like not leverage us to the full extent, there was this company that said like, hey, you should build this, own this, and not just in one product, but in like Conference, Jira, HipChat, Trello, Bitbucket, etc., right? And that sounded really promising. So we actually went down that route and yeah, basically joined Atlassian. I personally stayed at Atlassian for 7 years in a couple of different roles. I was super fortunate to work with like really good people over there. They have an amazing culture. Their leadership is amazing. I personally reported to Mike Cannon-Brooks actually 4 years, which was like, yeah, like such a learning experience, right? So I stuck around for 7 years. I would have never imagined that because I thought like, okay, you might stick around like until your handcuffs are gone, right? But yeah, we had a good ride, really made it successful, and they kept on feeding us. So yeah, the minimum turnership of the team actually was 4 years. That was when the first person actually left and decided to go back to Germany. And even then, sometimes they kept on working for Atlassian from Germany. So they were also one of the first remote people working for Atlassian. Anyway, I'm getting off track a little bit, and that's why I'm using my app again that I'm building right now, which will help me to get on track again. So that was startup number one. So basically the first product. Funding, I didn't talk much about it. Basically I got introduced by a friend to his network. So he was actually doing the most successful or most funded startup in Germany back then, funded by Peter Thiel and Bill Gates and a few others. He didn't introduce me to these kind of people, but like other like really good entrepreneurs and investors and business angels in Germany. So they invested, they knew I was like a little bit quirky and like loved technology more maybe than like building a like big business, but hey, it worked out, right? So we sold to Atlassian, made for like a really good name on their portfolio, on their exit companies, right? So yeah, there was first product, first funding, and first exit. All right, we can also just stripe. Before I talk more about what Questmate is and what Questmate does, I have like a few things, like general tips and like I think my biggest learnings and I think the biggest unfair advantages that I collected over the last couple of years. But they're pretty broad, and I would say like if you're interested in like anything, how to build your app, how you get funding or like whatever, I can basically like maybe point you into the right direction for like all these different things. But I could just go for forever, and you might already be able to tell that, yeah, I can really go forever. So, but yeah, if you're interested in building like apps and services in a very high efficient way, why not like when I have quality and everything, not suffer from that, right? Ask me, I can talk about technologies and some strategies, team building, and so on. One of the biggest things that I learned was like build things in building blocks and make sure that those building blocks have their own value, especially if they're not core to the product that you build. So sometimes you build a product or an offering and you need something to enable this product to be built. But it might not just be like interesting for your product, but for others as well. So take like the example of duct tape, like that what we built actually, like the platform that actually enabled building duct tape, if we would have tied that to the product, we would not have been able to provide it independently from our product. We wouldn't have been able to provide it as a service. So whenever you build something that's not really core to your product and you build it, you should just build it if it doesn't exist, otherwise take some off-the-shelf service that already exists. But like then build it as a service, because that gives you the opportunity to sell it directly, to de-risk your R&D investment, and also like when you build something as a service, not directly tilt in your product, you'd also like automatically push the envelope in terms of like documentation, and again make it like not hardly wired to your product, so that you can actually offer it to others for their products eventually, right? If that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, again, just ping me later. And one thing that I'm really started to embrace, that's why I have it 3 times on this list, is leverage your product. So again, I will tell you a little bit about Questmate and what it does in a moment. But what I do extensively with Questmate, and that's also the nature of the product that enables me to do that, is I leverage it for everything that I do. I leveraged it to doing the fundraising, not just to show it during like the talks to VCs. I actually organized and run the whole round using Questmate. I'm using Questmate to like try new ideas right now, and others can as well, and you will see that in a moment as well. And I think my general message here is just, if you have a product, think about how you can actively use it yourself to your unfair advantage. Might not always be possible, but usually there should be some angle. And yes, leverage your product. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about what Questmate is. So at the beginning, we talked about Questmate being the app for getting things done for yourself, but especially like for teams and businesses. And we talked about like basically the mean to get things done. We talked about workflows, but workflows like sound quite abstract still to people. Like workflows could be a lot of things, right? What we actually built was workflows powered by forms. So we just now are in the phase of, and that's why our branding and communication and like everything that you see online might not really align with what I'm telling you right now, or might not really reflect that yet. But basically what we are, you can think about us as like a form builder on steroids. So it's not just a form builder where you can do like, oh, I have a text input, or I have like a checkable, or I have like a signature field. No, you can actually like extend the form. It's called a quest in Questmate. You can extend it with your own components. So these components, for instance, can be a drop-down powered by data coming from a Google Sheet. Or it can be something that happens after a form is being submitted that sends the data back into your product. It can heavily integrate with your existing apps that you already use, including your own app and including your own smart devices. So you can also give like very granular access as part of a workflow. So instead of just telling people do this, do that, you can actually give them the means from the app to do it. So you can, if you have like if you use Eventbrite and you say like as part of the quest, don't forget to check in the people for the event, you can actually then do that from the quest itself. So like basically the idea is that the quest tells you what's involved, how to do it, and ideally even allows you to do it, right? It might even say like, okay, pick up the Tesla and press this button to make the lights blink so that you can easily find it in the garage. And you won't believe it, but we actually have customers using it for use cases like this. Just a moment. Okay, here we go again. So, and also there's so much more that you can do with these quests, right? So you can assign them. So instead of just being like a form, a Google form that you need to share then via email with people, you can actually just assign quests. And that could be like, again, something that you want to be done, but there could also be some feedback that you want to collect. And you just can put in like an email address or phone number. That person gets a notification, needs to verify themselves by code. So they will also then get like a code. So you know their response actually comes from them, or it's actually them that worked on the quest. So you can assign things. You can do so many different things. So to give you an example, Fishburners, the co-working space that we're working out from in Sydney, they use it from everything from visitor registration. So when you come there as a visitor, visiting like another startup, the thing that you check in on the iPad is a quest. It's just not like a list-based flow, it's just like a slide-by-slide flow like you know from other sign-in apps. When you buy a day pass, that actually creates a quest run for them. So whenever you then come in and say like, hey, I bought this day pass for this co-working space, they can actually go into their quest runs for day passes and see like, oh, cool, here's one from Sascha. They can like take the access card that they hand to you and take the number, put it into a quest, finish off the quest, and then the day pass is done, right? And also then that creates a follow-up quest for returning the card and so on. And they use it for delivery management and so much other use cases. Actually, like co-working spaces became like one of our main customer groups right now, because you might imagine that this app is like very horizontal, so it can cater and be used in like like everywhere, right? Like bakeries, yoga studios, but also Gigafactory in Texas, Nevada. I know that's quite specific, but that's just the truth. You can also have approvals. You can have rewards. So you can have actually, when you assign, let's say, an Airbnb cleanup task to like somebody that does it, you can also attach basically the reward and the payment to the quest as well. But you can also then say like, oh, it needs my approval. So the person gets an assignment for cleaning their Airbnb, ticking off all the things so that all your expectations are actually met. But then like they also get like the payment at the end of the quest after optional review from your side. If you trust them, you can also just have it automatically issue as soon as they said, yep, I restocked everything, cleaned everything, I'm done. You can accept payments soon. So not just like do payouts. By the way, payouts can be everything from cash payouts, gift cards. People can even donate the money that they get from a quest. So that's already there. And I'm actually going to show you that. I already mentioned that along the way, but like you can actually give access to smart devices, right? So you can say as part of a yoga studio routine, you can say disarm the alarm and make it an actual, instead of like explaining them how to do it and tick it off, you can allow them to disarm the alarm. You can allow them to turn on the light. You can allow them to turn on the music right from the quest. And then the very last thing, which like you will also see in a moment, is you will be able to build entire apps using Questmate. So a quest can actually be, and I mean, by mentioning that you can even use it as a visitor management solution, you might already be able to tell, okay, it seems to be, I can, like, usually I would buy an app for that, right? But you don't need to do that anymore. You can actually build a quest for that and have like an equal or even better experience with like very deep integrations. And you will be able to iterate much faster than everybody else. So yeah, you can build apps, but you can even build AI apps starting tomorrow. And that's also why I was a little bit late, because I just basically built that on the parking lot like 30 minutes ago. Just an example, this is a Tesla remote control. So battery is at 43%, range is 228 kilometers, whatever. These are components that you can actually either build yourself or soon also like pick from our library. So right now, when you want to do something like this, I would share a script that you would just put into the custom component. But we are also working on the component right now. So you will just be able to say, oh, I want to give control to a Philips Hue, or like control to a Tesla, or like whatever it is. And we will just have it as just another component that you can use as part of building your quest. You might not think this is real, but there's a Tesla over there. So if I press honk, you might not be able to hear it, but I think it will also maybe flash. Oh, well, you can even hear it, right? And it didn't flash. So, and again, I did that right from the quest, right? So what I'm doing here right now, the whole presentation is basically just the quest in slide mode. So I hope I have proven some point here. That actually concludes what Questmate was able to do until this morning before we started this day, and maybe as a little bit of like a transition to like what I'm going to show you. We had a team event this morning, and I shared the story actually on LinkedIn. So if we start connecting there, you should search for me there, and I will search for you. Just give me your name or give me your phone, and I put in my name. Doesn't matter. You will see that I shared the story where we were talking about like more things to get even more leads, right? And again, we wanted to leverage our product as much as possible for everything that we do. And I was like saying like, okay, this is idea one, and somebody had idea two, and we agreed, okay, let's do that, right? Let's time box that. Let's do that next week. But like I have one more idea. And I went far too wide, and far too broad, and like basically the whole team was just collapsing. So there's a photo in the LinkedIn post with like our engineering lead, Jack, and he was just passing out. It was like, oh man, here we go again. And you might be able to tell by me giving this talk on like how the experience might have been for him, right? Quite overwhelming. But then he gave me like constructive feedback and was like, why are we building this separate thing? And what I was actually pitching was basically just a vision. And I wanted, and the actual idea and the first step that I wanted to suggest that we do, basically that message got lost, right? And he was like, oh no, we should just focus on Questmate, and why would it be another thing? And he was 100% right. So what actually happened was I went home back to Avalon just to prepare mentally for this talk. And then before that, I was like, I always go for a run, like whenever I'm like stressed or I don't know, to sort myself. But then I was going for a run, and often like also ideas pop into my head. And then I had this idea, okay, like I had this idea, and like it was way too much, and it was way too distracting for the team. Even though the idea was quite simple. The idea was, let's do Project Google. And instead of Google, it's similar. You go there, it just has a logo, has an input box. And, but instead of putting in a search query, you put in something that you want to get done. So instead of going to Questmate, for instance, and say like, oh, I want this thing done, sign up to Questmate, create the quest, configure it myself, how does it even work, what's an assignment, what's a run, like we need to shortcut that, right? So the idea is we have Google, and it just has like an input box where you say like, I want to get my house painted. Or it could also be an online job, right? I want to build an app. And I'm not sure if Buzzy presented here last week or last time. So maybe that gives you an idea also on what's possible with AI already. So the idea of Google is you can put in whatever, and it's basically the search engine. It's not really a search engine, but like think about it as a search engine for AI. There's so many different things popping up now that you can do with AI, and so overwhelming, right? And even if you just want to do like create an image, for instance, there are so many services. There are DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, whatever, right? So the idea of DALL-E, to get back to it, and not like, again, that's why the team was also quite overwhelmed, right? Same story. Like you would just enter what you want to get done, and it would just do it as best as possible, right? And it would basically, if you said something that involves a manual task, it would actually create a quest for you and would say like, oh, okay, if you want to get your house painted, these are the things that you should have on your quest so that you also think about, so that you actually, whenever you assign this task to like somebody who's doing it, you set your expectation, right? Because nothing is worse than like putting in like a lot of money for getting your house painted, and then like it's shit, right? Either you didn't know or you didn't tell them how to do it correctly. So it will not just then create a quest, but then it will also ask you, do you want to do it yourself? Do you know somebody that you want to assign this to? So this is still, again, functionality from Questmate that we already have today. Or do you want to put this on a marketplace, right? So do you want this to basically to put on something like Fiverr? And at the beginning, we might actually create a quest and put it on Fiverr, but then we will also like replace Fiverr at some point, right? And say like, oh, we have like our own two-sided marketplace within Questmate. But yeah, again, team was super overwhelmed. It was like, man, you're talking about apps, images, deliveries, like all these things. I can pop anything. Like, how would that even work, right? And even if we like just redirect to like basically just take what they put in there and try to detect what that person wants to get done and redirect to an existing service. So let's take, as an example, they want to build an app. We would just be able to like redirect them to Buzzy, right? But we would still need to build this landing page. We would still need to build a service that interacts with these other services and with Questmate. And that was like, no, we can't do that. Let's focus on Questmate. So I took this feedback, and then like, while I was on a run, I was like, why are we even thinking about having like this separate page that we pull up? This can be a quest, right? And if you go to google.app right now on your phone, you can actually, you will be redirected right now to Questmate, and it will be quite obvious because right now the URL will actually change. Tomorrow the URL will not change anymore, but it's still going to be powered by Questmate. So let me actually, now I took away all the surprise, because one more thing, loading one more thing. This is a fixed counter, by the way, it doesn't even do anything. So this is how this looks in Questmate. The UI looks a little bit crappy because I zoomed in so that like you can maybe see it better. So if you see like things are not aligned, it's just because I have it on like largest text. But this is actually Google, the internal version. And you can see what it is at the end of the day. It has a nice greeting. It has the prompt, what do you want to get done today? And then after somebody completed this, it just says like working some magic. And what happens then is, because it's not fully real just yet, so if you go to google.app, maybe do that on your phone. That would be actually amazing if you could do that. You can also scan this QR code. It will bring you also to Google. And again, that's a working title, right? there might be a company feeling offended and might actually sue us or like issue a cease and desist tomorrow. But that's tomorrow. So I also don't know which company that could be. So yeah, if you could go to google.app and tell me if that actually works. And if you have problems typing it, just scan the QR code. And we all learned how to scan a QR code, right? If you see something that looks purple in the background, let me know. Yeah, okay, cool, and perfect. All right, there's a continue button. And now think about like something really that you want to get done. That could be an app that you want to build, that could be a labor task, that could be like a nice portrait of yourself, or booking some tickets to like the movies, right? Whatever it is, just put it in. What is that? Does it work?
So I'm searching for Google.
Just put it into Safari. Safari into your browser.
Okay.
And just type google.app. Yeah, you can also scan the QR code. I will just wait until like everybody says, yep, I opened it. Cool. Yeah, and again, like if you could make an effort and like not putting something silly, huh? I can actually do it for you if you want it. Just a moment. Yeah, and just press on continue and like enter like whatever you want to get done. You're going to scan it instead, or?
I'm going all over the place. I can't.
Sorry.
It's all right, no worries. I keep getting the guy from Magic Roundabout.
Yeah.
So when I put the first task in, is the second task linked to the first task, or is it asking me for something separate?
What was that? Sorry.
So first task was launch an podcast episode.
Yeah.
Then I go to that page. Is that a separate task?
That's a separate one, yeah. Like we will have both of the responses and we will use both to train the UI so that it will be able to do that. So we will basically prioritize what it will be able to do by, so you're the first users of this right now, right? And it will not do it immediately, but it will do it in, maybe depending on what it is, in 24 hours from here.
So if the first one was launch a podcast
Did-
episode.
Yeah, exactly. And if you scroll down, you can scroll down a little bit. And yeah, there are some other things that you can do and also provide feedback. There are also links to connect with, like to follow us or to connect to me on LinkedIn, on that as well. Like as soon as you filled out your first or put in your first task for Google. Cool. And can you just raise your hand if you already submitted something? Okay, cool. All right. Rob, you did it as well? Did you submit something? Okay.
You got a spelling on that one. That's
Yeah.
literally says Google.
Well, that's like MVP, right? Actually, that's a good point. So,
It didn't come up on my search.
yeah. Yeah, do that. And just, yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
I will fix that right away for you in a moment. While we wait for the other submissions.
It's more for you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean. Okay, Google feedback. So again, I will be able to iterate like super quick now because I can just go to the feedback quest, the second thing that you put in, and I can correct, oops, that other company with Google AI. Cool, all right. Fixed, so the next time it will be addressed.
Well, maybe I can refresh it.
What was that?
Maybe I'll try refreshing.
Oh yeah, you can. It will actually refresh the existing instance, so you would need to go. You would need to press on.
It's done, it's worked.
Ah, cool, perfect. All right. So all right. So you will have seen it's not functional yet, but it will be in the next 24 hours. That's promised. And like the things that it will be able to do will be well, a mix out of like what you put in there, what people really wanted to get done. I hope you really didn't put in a joke, but like something serious. Otherwise, please do it again. But we will use that, and we will have like first things that it can actually do itself tomorrow using a quest. Otherwise, it will also try to redirect you to another AI service. So if you want to create an app, it will like redirect you to Buzzy, which is like another startup from the Northern Beaches, which allows you to create like really full-fledged apps right from your browser, even if you're not technical. Or it will redirect you just to ChatGPT or to Stable Diffusion or whatever it's going to be. And that's pretty much the idea, right? So like we had an idea this morning, said like, okay, if we build this is too much of a distraction. And then like we thought about, okay, what could be an MVP be? And like you can actually build experiences and apps in Google, as you like can tell. And I hope it didn't feel too crappy. It should have already feel like quite polished, right? And that's the whole idea. And what you will also be able to do is, if you don't want to use Google or not Questmate with the existing use cases that I told you, or controlling your Tesla or like whatever it is, you will actually be able to build what we are building with Google. You will be able to build yourself. So you can build another Google, or you can just build like something more specific to your offering, right? So let's say you have a product where you also have like a process where somebody needs to put in some work to create the first whatever it is in your product, right? You could actually use it as a facade service where people don't need to register yet. They just say like what they want to get done with your product, and then you can use that information, feed it to OpenAI, and basically then use that what comes back from OpenAI to create what they wanted to create in your product automatically, right? So you will be able to like basically build like a little AI prompt app yourself using a Quest in like 5 minutes. I will also record like a YouTube video, which will be around like 5 to 10 minutes, which will explain you how to do that as well. And that will be also linked, again, when you go to Google Google.app tomorrow, it will already look like quite different, at least from the functionality and the text and everything that it will give you. And to be honest, I think I went on for like far too long already. It's almost 8. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.